Hello. Today we're going to make hot dog buns. So I'm using a KitchenAid mixer with a dough hook. Put that on there. You'll need 1 1/4 cups of warm water. You don't want hot, but warm is definitely good. Just put that in there. Then you will also need a sugar source. So I'm using a teaspoon of honey. You could use a little bit of sugar or stevia, anything really. Give that a little glug in there. And your yeast. I'm using a quick rising yeast. You could use a bread machine yeast. You could really use any kind of yeast. It's just going to take longer. 2 1/4 teaspoons is what a pouch would be, so that's what you want in there. Now you're going to kind of let that do its thing. I like to add a little tiny bit of the flour. Not much. You're going to have a total of 3 cups, maybe a little bit more depending on your environment. So I just put a little bit in there, give it a little run around, and it will, you're going to wait probably 5-10 minutes for it to puff up. So you want your yeast to make sure it's active. You're going to, we'll show you when it gets bubbly there. As you can see there, it's starting to bubble up. Now, because we're using a quick yeast, you don't have to wait as long as you would if you were using like a traditional yeast. That's probably good right there. Okay, so now that it's already there, we are going to put in some butter. You'll need 2 tablespoons. Just put that right in there. And the salt. I like to add the salt after I've added a little bit of flour because sometimes it can mess up your yeast. So I have 3 cups of flour here. I'm using all-purpose. You could use bread or half and half. You could add a little bit of wheat if you want. So I'm just going to start this and start adding my flour. The 3 cups is really a guideline. Your environment, if it is too moist, the air, your house, whatever, it will, sometimes you'll require a little bit less or a little bit more. So what I would recommend is, you know, watching it the whole time. You'll start to get kind of a feel for your dough once you do it a couple of times. You're really going to be going for the consistency of, you could pinch it and it will not quite stick to your hands, but you know, you don't want it too dry either. I'll show you when we get there. Okay, so our dough is coming together there. I'm just going to put a little up to it here. So you're really going to be watching her to start coming away from the sides. It's going to start pulling in that other flour, and it's going to start, you'll know it's too wet if it's sticking to the sides of your bowl. Alright, so you can see here it's coming together, and you can also see that it's probably going to need more flour. If you look at the, a little closer. See at the bottom, you can see how it kind of is making call it a tornado. So we're definitely going to need more flour. Okay, so we're going to test it here in just a second. Okay, so see how it's not sticking to the bottom anymore? It's had a good minute. Now this is before you're actually kneading. You're just kind of combining at this point. Now if we touch it here, you can see it's a little haggard here, but it's not, I think it's gonna be okay. So at this point, once it is not sticking to your fingers, then you want to turn it on and you're going to knead it for 5 minutes. And I will show you what that consistency looks like when it's done. Okay, so we're just coming up to the end here of the kneading of 5 minutes. The timer's just about to go off. So I thought I would show you what the consistency should look like. There we go. So we're going to turn off the machine and just have a peek. So as you can see here, oh, you can't see. There we go. If you pinch it, see how it doesn't stick to my hands, but it's still a good consistency. So we are going to pull this off of here and bring it over to the other side. Okay, so I just have a bowl here for rising. I'm just going to spray it with a little bit of ham or cooking spray, whatever. Take your dough. You really don't need to do anything to it at this point. I usually just form it into a ball, do a little tuck under, and plop it in. Just make sure it's all coated. I use bonnets. You can use a damp dish towel. You can use a paper towel and plastic wrap. I use bonnet. So just put that on there. You're going to put this in your stove with the light on. That'll be perfect for proofing. So don't mind my dirty oven. Just put it in there. You're going to need that probably in there for half an hour. Depending on your temperature, we'll check it in half an hour and see. Okay, so as you can see here, the dough has proofed. It has gotten bigger. So that's about a half an hour there. So we're going to scale this out now to make the actual buns. So probably 2.5 ounces you would want for your buns. Let me just see if I can maybe this way a little bit. I like to use the Silpat to roll them out on, just because it's a little sticky. It might work on the counter though too. Let me just see here. My digital scale, you don't have to. You could eyeball it and be just as comfortable. They just might not all be the exact same size. Okay, so I'm just using a bench knife to cut this up. Way too big. There we go. So yeah, I'm just going to measure them all out into approximately 2.5 we'll say dough balls. You're just going to take your ball and shape it into what you would think would be a hot dog. You can kind of roll it into a nice ball first, just to make it more uniform. So just take, I'll show you with the next one. So then you do that, keep your seams on the ground. I don't have use a rolling pin, wine bottle, whatever you have. Just roll that out a little bit, and if you do it on here, it'll stick. and then I just roll them up like that, pinch my ends in, and you're good to go. Oh, I have another one over here. Okay, so we'll do that again. So if you have your dough ball like that, you're going to take the ends, just fold it inside of itself like that. That just gives you a nice smooth surface to work on. Put your seam down, and then you're gonna roll that out and give it a little roll. Tuck your ends, and you're good. So again, take your ball, just roll it into itself. Again, you're just smoothing out that surface so that when it rises again, it'll be a nice smooth bun. Again, you're going to roll that out and roll that in and tuck your ends. I'll do one more here with you. Okay. Now, if you haven't kneaded, well, I guess at this point you wouldn't have a choice, but sometimes it's a little bit more elasticy than others. But usually if you've had a good rise on it, you'll be okay. Alright, so you're going to do that to all of your balls here. Okay, so this is the tray all done. We're going to have this rise one more time. So you can put it in your oven if your house is a little cooler. Again, with just the light on. And I usually just cover this with a towel. And you're probably going to want it to rise probably half an hour, 15 minutes, half an hour. Usually, sometimes if you want, you can leave it on the top, turn your oven on to start preheating, and then by the time your oven's preheated, these are pretty much ready to go in the oven. You're going to put these in an oven at 350 degrees for about 20 to 25 minutes, depending. So just keep checking them. And I'll bring you back when they are all cooked up.